Hello and welcome to the latest version. I'm your host, Betsy Bush. Every podcast needs a Christmas episode, don't you think? So as I end my first year as a podcaster, I thought you might want to hear a story about an earlier version of mine when I was selling nutcrackers and Christmas crafts from Germany in the very early years of the internet. I had some success. I was on Martha Stewart. I got stories placed in national magazines like Country Living and Better Homes and Gardens. And then after 7 years, I closed the business. Helping to tell my story is Nancy Steiner. She's a former network television news producer who worked with Katie Couric on The Today Show, among many others. Nancy is now an executive coach who you'll hear from on an upcoming episode. But today, we're flipping the script, and Nancy is interviewing me. Hi, Nancy, and welcome to the latest version.
Hi, Betsy. I'm so happy you're joining us this morning.
Okay, so usually I'm on the side of the microphone where I'm asking the questions, but I am thrilled to be on the interviewee side with someone who has your background and experience and interest in all my little people here. And I want to say to people who are listening to the podcast, please go to our YouTube channel where you can see all of my nutcrackers and the other little Christmas decorations I have set up here, if you want to take a look. And so Nancy, please fire away.
Well, Betsy, not everyone is as lucky as I am to meet somebody who has a passion for nutcrackers. This is a rare and wonderful thing.
Oh my gosh.
And yet, maybe it's not so rare because so many people across the globe love nutcrackers so much.
Yes.
How did this come to pass?
It really started when I had lived in Germany, and people who have listened to an earlier version of me talking about going to Germany a few years out of college to work at Deutsche Welle, Radio Deutsche Welle in Cologne, know that I speak German. And in the mid-90s, not too long after the wall had come down between East and West Germany, my husband and I, he speaks German too, took a trip to the parts of Germany we could not visit before, one of which was the Dresden area in the state of Saxony. And I knew that in the area outside of Dresden, there was a place called the Erzgebirge where they made these incredibly charming little Christmas decorations and little flying angels and nutcrackers and things like that. And we happened to drive into this area, and it was just overwhelming. It was so charming and so unbelievable. It's this Christmas craft industry, or cottage industry, is centered around a village called Seiffen, Seiffen, with this unique octagonal-shaped church, and surrounding it are all these little houses that are both residential houses but also workshops. And in these workshops are families who have been creating nutcrackers and smokers and all these other little beautiful Christmas things. They've been doing this for generations, at least in many cases 150, 200 years. And
that is amazing.
It's amazing.
Years, yes.
Yeah. And for an American, it was like stumbling onto Santa's workshop. It was, and it seemed so genuine because, a lot of our Christmas traditions here in the United States are not from England, they're from Germany. The Santa Claus figure, as we know him, is German, and the Christmas tree, was Prince Albert from Germany is credited with bringing it to Victorian England and all of that.
The Tannenbaum.
Yes, the Tannenbaum. So, and I thought, oh my gosh, if people knew what was here and that you could get the original Nutcracker that made in the original Nutcracker workshop, people would go crazy. And what gave me the advantage was that this was the former East Germany, where people didn't speak English. They were still relatively isolated, and they weren't good at communicating the story of what they had. It's a very deep folk art tradition. There's our dog again.
Yes. They feel the need to contribute to every podcast.
Yes, that's wonderful. So I really just dived into the history and the tradition, and I got the idea. It's like, I haven't seen these in stores. Of course, I knew about the Nutcracker Ballet, as everyone else does, but I thought this is an opportunity to bring something to the United States that would really resonate with people. And so I kind of set up a little business. I called it Drosselmeier's Handcrafted Treasures from the Land of the Nutcrackers. And this was, like I said, mid-'90s, and it was really the dawn of the internet age. And I found someone who wanted to learn how to set up a e-commerce website. And so we got that going. It really felt like we were building a house out of like planks of wood, even like kind of, a cabin of some sort. There were no easy off-the-shelf programs where you could just build a website. It was really, seems very primitive now,
Why did you decide to actually turn this into a business when there were already so many other places to buy nutcrackers in this country?
Well, I was home with a toddler, and I was really looking for something home-based.
Yeah.
And I thought I could do this, and I think a lot of people have started businesses on the internet thinking, great, I can stay at home with my little one, and when they're sleeping, I can, work on the website or whatever. It looked like something that I could do uniquely. Yes, there were nutcrackers out there, but I did not see a lot of this particular kind of nutcracker.
And how can you tell? Let's just pause for a second. There are a couple of things I want to get to.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the challenges of it being an early internet business person, but I also want you to tell us straight away, how can you tell the real thing, the real nutcracker?
Okay, this is
the imposter.
Okay, well, this is a Fishner Nutcracker. This is from the workshop that is credited to be the first Nutcracker workshop, which is to say people were always using, these things are turned on a lathe. They're not carved with a knife or anything. They're turned on a lathe using, in the early days, water power. And I'd like to think, well, first of all, I would look at the bottom to see what is on the bottom. If it says made in Germany, Erzgebirge is the other term you should look for. ERZ, Erz means ore, precious metal ore. Gebirge means mountains, Gebirge. Erzgebirge is the region that you want to buy your nutcracker from. And the Fishner Nutcrackers will actually crack a nut. That's because this whole piece is one solid piece of wood. A lot of nutcrackers are made where the head is separate. So if you levered up against the head might, pop off. And who wants that? So, but when I look at some of the ones that come from China, I sometimes see something that is not as broad. I see legs that are skinnier that actually have maybe a space between them. There's something about the face. This is a wonderful face. There's something about the face that that lacks something. Maybe the eyes are maybe too far apart, or they're painted on the surface. They're not carved in. They're not indented. And then you have these two little button eyes. And then here, sometimes the mustache is painted on, but here this is actually a raised mustache and this cute nose. So, and this is rabbit fur. So, wow. Yeah, and this is all hand painted. I'm also posting on my YouTube channel the 30-minute video film that I produced in 2001, which actually shows the ladies in the Fishner Nutcracker.
I love that film.
Thank you so much. You know, the funny thing about that was it was released in 2001, and I had German friends who were filmmakers who did the filming for me. They'd gone down to the Erzgebirge the Christmas before and got a lot of Christmas street scenes and things like that. It had snowed that the night before, and it's really just magical, the footage they got. And then I went over the next spring and got interviews with the crafters.
So tell me, you've also got things there called smokers.
Yes. And the smokers are these cute little, they're standing figures where the almost always a man has a pipe in his hand. And what you do is you take the midsection off, and there's a little platform for an incense cone. If you light the cone and replace the body, the smoke from the incense comes out of the mouth, and he looks like he's smoking a pipe. And the story, the contrast between the Nutcracker and the smoker is the Nutcracker represents the authority figure, the king, the prince, the forester. This is an interesting figure in the life of the Erzgebirglers. The forester was the enforcer on the estates that surround, or the king's lands that surround these little villages that enforce the anti-poaching laws. And of course, the Erzgebirglers would always want to go and hunt game and things like that to eat. And the forester was always there punishing anyone they caught taking game off the estate property of the king or the landowner. And so their way of getting back at these figures of authority was to turn them into funny, nutcrackers with the big jaw and making them crack nuts and stuff like that, bossing them around for once. The idea of the smoker, though, is completely different. The smoker represents the little people of the village. You'll often find peddlers, postmen, people who spend a lot of time on their feet. And this is the idea of giving them a moment of rest and leisure and giving them a pipe to smoke. And in the post-unification years, these have turned into an interesting subset where you find a lot of different professions represented. Doctors, firemen, bakers, all sorts of just a huge variety of smokers are available, and it's a lot of fun to see what they come up with. They're very inventive, and you have these charming little tiny. This is what I'm holding now is a toy peddler who has this tray on a. What do you call this, leather ties, and the little tray is filled with teeny tiny little figures, presumably toys for sale. So these are, isn't that sweet? And
are these thriving now?
I think, I've been out of it for 15 years now. It's still out there. I think it has not been an easy road for any of them, and I think they've needed to find ways to scale up while still keeping the charm and the handcrafted qualities. I think it's been a little overwhelming for them. I think they're some of the lowest paid workers in Germany, but they're much higher paid when you think of what the people who are manufacturing in China are paid. So,
and as far as your business is concerned or was concerned, do you think the internet helped you or hurt you or a little bit of both?
I think it was an interesting time of transition. I think if there had been, I was doing this before Facebook was out. And if I had been around when Facebook was around, believe it or not, I think Facebook started in 2005. Is that about right?
I don't know. But do you think that if you were doing this now?
If I were, and I don't know if anybody is doing it. I think when I closed the business, I kind of did not want to look back. So I kind of closed the door on that. But if I did some really wonderful trips, I'd go over every year and I'd actually visit these workshops. And I took some wonderful pictures of these craftsmen creating their craft, and the workshops were just so, you really felt like you'd walked into something, you'd gone back in time 150 years. It was really remarkable. But it was hard to get that out to people. And I immediately, when Facebook came out, I'm like, oh, this is what I needed when I was doing the Nutcracker thing. I think the big problem is I think the best way to sell these things is you need to tell the story.
Yes.
And you need to have that. You need to have that contact with the customer and explain just what I told you about. This is the little guy who, gets a chance to smoke with his pipe, and this is the original Nutcracker from the Fishner workshop. Look at these beautiful hand-painted details. That gets lost on the internet. And that's what's lost when you have when those high-end gift shops where you had someone invested in telling the story to potential customers. Yes. That's what's lost in that, and then it becomes strictly a thing of price, and you lose the charm and the story that comes with it, the story that your customer could tell the person they're giving the present to. This is what they told me in the store. That da-da-da-da-da, right? So, but on the other hand, I had customers all over the country. I had a customer who would. The interesting thing about Nutcrackers, I found out, was Nutcrackers were something that people were giving their sons, their boys. And they were, I had customers who were buying different Nutcrackers for their sons every year, so they would have this big collection. When they went off and started their own family, they would have 10 Nutcrackers to decorate with. And I thought that was interesting.
Women Nutcrackers.
There are no women Nutcrackers because this is a satirical figure that is not supposed to be. They would never do a female Nutcracker because you would never, give this to a woman, right? This kind of the spite thing. This is how they envision their women, and I think this is really lovely.
Wow.
This angel.
I love her.
Yeah. And the whole idea of this pair. And my producer and I should have secured all of the candles, right, Charlie? This is I'm holding this figure who has a black coat and white pants and this kind of tall conical green cap. This is the parade uniform of the miners who had worked in the silver ore mines from the Middle Ages through to the 18th and 19th century. And they had this wonderful tradition of parading through the streets at certain occasion with these fancy uniforms. And they created a female figure, the angel, as a compliment to the miner.
Her candlestick is falling.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, this happens with candles, right? There we go. And what you'll find at Christmas time in the Erzgebirge is they'll put in the window a miner figure for every boy in the family and a girl figure and an angel for every girl.
Wow.
And so these
I'd rather have an angel after me than
yeah. and this becomes that now you're getting into the very deep folk art tradition that has nothing to do with the commercial prospects of the Nutcrackers. The Nutcrackers really are a more commercial. It was something they could create that they could sell.
Let me ask you something, Betsy.
Yeah.
When the ballet was created, did sales suddenly soar? What was the effect?
The Nutcracker started more with the book, the Nutcracker, wow. and there were actually a couple of Nutcracker books that had a Nutcracker. One of the stories involves a little boy who is very sick, and on Christmas Eve he goes to sleep and he dreams of all the toys that he'll all the kind of this dream of toys, and King Nutcracker is there kind of as the master of ceremonies, and when he awakes he's better and he has all these toys around him because it's Christmas morning. The Erzgebirge folks were already making all the other little toys, but they weren't making a Nutcracker yet. So that's when Mr. Fishner made the first Nutcracker to sell. That's the commercial part of the Nutcracker story. And then these other things they were already making for themselves. The ballet is interesting, and I've studied this a little bit. There's the Nutcracker ballet was not performed in this country until after World War II.
Really?
Yes, yes.
So surprising.
Yes. Well, it was brought to this country by, I want to say, one of the great Russian ballet masters who started staging it. And in this kind of post-war era, when you had all these suburbanites sending their kids to dancing school, suddenly this became the thing. And of course, we all know the music is absolutely charming. It's accessible. It's something everybody loves. And with the development of the Nutcracker as a holiday tradition, the Nutcracker figurine comes along with it. The Nutcracker industry in East Germany is very complicated in the post-war era because East Germany was a communist state. Mm-hmm. All the private, all the little family workshops were taken over by the state. People did not have rights to their own designs, even to their own goods, because this was communism, after all.
Yeah, of course.
And so it was only when the wall came down and unification happened in 1990 that these families were able to reclaim this heritage of theirs and invest in their own designs and their own workshops. Otherwise, everything went out under a common label, which some people might find on old Nutcrackers. It was called Expertic, Expertic, Expertic. And you might see that, German Democratic Republic, GDR would be the initials you might see. So if you're a Nutcracker collector, you might want to look for those.
So you, of all people, would be the best judge on what is the most wonderful, beautiful Nutcracker on the planet. And I think you might have some insight.
I am, I'm pretty opinionated on this, and I want to show you this. This is a Fishner Nutcracker from the Fishner Nutcracker family has been making Nutcrackers for 150 years. I saw a photograph of a Nutcracker that was not red or blue or, brightly colored. It was this beautiful ivory jacket with little details. And I asked them to recreate this Nutcracker for me exclusively and for Country Living magazine. And here we have Country Living magazine made exclusively in 2001.
How amazing.
And it's signed by Volker Fishner. And
wow.
I think we had 250 made. So if you have one of these, hang on to it. What I love about this is it's very subtle. I love this kind of cornflower blue detail instead of the bright blue. This little red detail, but the gold and the cornflower blue, I think it has a subtlety that you don't see in your average Nutcracker. And I think it's very special. What do you think?
Wonderful. I think it looks wonderful, too. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. So that's one of my favorites.
Is there anything else about the Nutcracker world that you'd like to share with us?
I think it's a very special one that has been undervalued and not really well understood. Why
do you think that is?
I think like a lot of things, particularly in the past 20 years, I think Christmas has just become more and more stuff. And more and more, I hate to say junk, but I look at a lot of this and it's like, this isn't going to, people buy stuff and will maybe get rid of it next year and do something new. I think what you've got here is something that will always be treasured and part of a family tradition. And to think that it's really made with care and made in an atmosphere, or it's part of a larger folk art tradition that there really aren't many of anymore. And yet it's been hard to communicate this kind of it's a quiet, subtle story, and sometimes that gets lost in the translation.
What do you call those wonderful things where the candles go around and around?
Oh, okay. They call those pyramids, and I'm sorry I don't have one because they're wonderful. They look like wedding cakes or something. With the different levels and the propellers on top, and the heat of the candles turns the propellers. And again, if you go, those. Yes, they're wonderful. One thing about all of these crafts is they are wood, they are delicate, they may not, you can't treat them, you have to treat them with great care to, if they're going to last forever. That's one thing I found out, shipping things, the need to really, pack things well and, unpacking things, packing them up when I take them to gift fairs or things like that to sell. I'd have to unpack things and set them up, and then things that didn't sell had to get repacked, and it's a lot. It's a lot. It was a lot to do. It was a lot to take care of.
So at the end of each of your podcasts, Betsy, you always ask people for 3 pieces of advice. Yeah. And I'd like to trade places today and ask you for some advice.
Well, I would say if you're going to do a holiday business, understand what you're getting into, because, I thought it would be fun to have a holiday business that maybe my kids could help me with, and, we'd have fun unpacking things, and, ooh, look at this, and Mommy, oh, this is so cute. And the kids are really not into it, as it turned out. And the more, there's so much the pressure to get things packed and out the door, to go to, say, the gift fairs that, the Junior League gift fairs or the this or that gift fair would take me away from my family on weekends when I wanted to be out with them doing fun things. And I did not take that into account as well. And I knew that I was ready to close down when I was thinking to myself sometime in mid-December, down in the basement packing orders, I was thinking, I can't wait till this is over. And that's not the way you should be thinking about, this most wonderful time of the year. But I wanted to be. I'd be down in the basement packing orders, and my family would be upstairs having fun or doing whatever. And it's like, I want to be there too. And so, and another thing I would say is, this is a very complicated business. Importing things from another country, taking the exchange rate into account, setting all of that up. I didn't have any kind of experience of this sort before. And we were also in this in-between time, do I send out a catalog? Do I just hang out my shingle on the internet and hope people find me? That was a really, and I think people are still not sure, right? I'm still getting a lot of catalogs from businesses who then want me to go and order on the website. So I think we still haven't figured this out. I think we're still in two places. We're still in the analog, hard copy catalog world, but we're also on the internet. And so that turned out to be a very expensive thing. And then I found myself really at the mercy of exchange rates. There was at one point when the euro, which Germany headed up, was really the biggest partner in the whole conversion from, individual national currencies. So they went from a Deutschmark to a euro. And for a year or so, it was €1 to $1. After a couple of years, it was €1 to $1.30. All of a sudden, my merchandise became 30% more expensive. Wow. And I got to a point where I really had to think, okay, I'm not losing money, but I'm not making anything.
Right.
And you really have to decide, is this worth it with everything else? Mm-hmm. I started the business when I wanted to be home with my kids. By this time, my kids were, at school and they were active, and I wanted to be out in the community. I didn't want to be stuck at home anymore.
Right, of course.
Yeah. So that was, in a lot of ways, it was like a natural time to close down. I happened to get a job in the community, which was great. And, then Drosselmeier's became one of these, okay, I did that.
Right.
And I still have old stock in my basement, which, it's a nice source for, someone needs a present, someone needs something special for Christmas. I still have that.
Good to know.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, Nancy. So that's, I don't know if that's 2 or if that's 3 pieces of advice.
All good advice.
Well, thanks. It was a wonderful experience. I'm glad I did it. I certainly got to know wonderful people in Germany. And I got to use skills that I had honed as a reporter when I did my own PR. I got myself into, big magazines. I got myself onto Martha Stewart.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But the interesting thing was none of those were game changers for me. Yeah. And I would find myself in early January just starting from ground zero again. And it's like, okay. Hard. Yeah. And it just felt like I'm not getting anywhere. Mm-hmm. And that's
maybe Kenny Rogers is right. You got to know when to fold them.
That's right. That's right. And there is this mindset out there, which is, know when to quit.
Exactly.
Know when to quit. That's right. And don't, that goes up against the never, 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 never give up.
But I think that that's actually really important. I think that it's very important for people to have a reality check and to know if this isn't bringing me joy, if it's not fulfilling the goals that I had in mind. It's very important to know when to walk away. And I think that's absolutely as important as having stick-to-itiveness.
I think that's right. And again, I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad I could, walk away feeling good. And it's something I'll always, that will always be a part of my life. So,
wonderful.
Yeah. Nancy.
Well, thank you, Betsy.
I appreciate this so much. This was so much fun. I hope you enjoyed it too.
Loved it, of course.
Great.
And Merry, Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.